Okay, so to introduce the night, this is challenge night. Dev Dictionary. What is the Dev Dictionary? I'll introduce it in 1 second. But we haven't done this before. I issued a challenge. I said, can you build this thing? Here's an idea. Imagine some client comes to you and they're like, I want you to make this thing. Can you make it happen? Well, that's one thing, doing it to get the job done, to make the client happy. But what we're here to do tonight is to make other developers happy. Have you ever taken over a project and you're just like, okay, that's every single project ever, right? It's, I'm really glad that the projects that I leave, I never have to hear about them again, because you know the next person, no matter what you do, the next person, and you know this happens because even if you look back at your own code, you're like, who, oh God, oh, it's me. Happens all the time, right? Okay, the reason we're doing this, have you had this conversation? So guy number one, he's all like, hey, let's talk about, you know, gulp and redux and all this stuff, and this other guy's like, well, that's not really, that's not how I built my app, so I'm not really getting you. I'm not following what you're doing. I don't use Redux, so does what you're saying apply to me? He's confused. He's like, well, what I work on is MobX, and I'm having this Webpack trouble. And the first guy's like, Webpack? No, we don't use that here. So the whole point is to have a common ground, some starting point that's the same. I thought this was pretty cool. I don't know how old this sign is. The reason this is funny is because those numbers are wrong. So 25 miles an hour is 40 kilometers per hour, but that doesn't really work, right? Like that's 2 to 3 or 3 to 2. It's not actually mathematically correct. And then I also like this, just on the flip side, that okay, have you heard of the TodoMVC project? At first, I was thinking that what I'm trying to do tonight is like that, and then I realized there's this yellow section at the bottom that says, so we're trying to solve this problem. TodoMVC is a project which offers the same to-do application implemented using MV star concepts in most of the popular JavaScript MV star frameworks of today. And then I realized, like, oh, that's exactly what I'm doing. The only difference is those are comparing different MVCs where we're already within one framework. When are we going to drop this off of React? Like, it's not a framework, but okay, React, the framework. We're all going to use React. It's up to you if you want to use Redux or whatever, but we're going to start with this common base and see if we can build this application. So here's the app preview. So the Dev Dictionary, what does that mean? That means that there's these terms, like in a dictionary, and there's multiple definitions, and users can log into this system and add terms and definitions at will. Just to keep it simple, the login isn't even real. I can't remember if I have that screen in here. I don't think I do, but you can see that you're currently logged in as Dilbert, which means that your life is terrible. And did you ask this question in particular? No. This came off of, what does full stack even mean? I thought these are some funny quotes. So recently on the AZ Web Devs Slack channel, somebody asked what it was, and you know, there were some funny responses in here. I'm not going to read them right now, but what does full stack mean to you? If you are a developer, it probably means something really different than if you're a client, right? Oh, hey, Nick, you're right here. That's awesome.
Do I get royalties on that?
I heard a couple chuckles. I'll direct all your chuckles to Nick and company. So some of the goals are, imagine if you're implementing this thing, right? You need to fetch the terms and the definitions from the server. And you also need to post new terms and new definitions to the server. And just to make it challenging, you can see up in the top right where it says number 5, sorry that it's a little bit small, but it says 3 definitions. So meaning that if you are logged in as Dilbert and you add a definition, that number needs to change too. Maybe not in real time, that's really up to the implementers, but that makes it harder to program this, right? You have to have, are you going to do it with global state? How are you going to do that? And finally, the last challenge was one other page where one of the terms and its definitions has to be downloaded. The only rules that I gave people when they designed this thing was remember what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to start with this common ground. Everybody does the same thing, but in a different way. So I will confess for them now, or I will admit that any confusion about this whole project is my fault. So if the implementers say when they're up here, they're like, well, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to change this or that, that's my fault. But as long as they're within the spirit of what we're trying to do here, I'm fine with it. We should be able to learn. And number 3 says, don't forget about the real world. So it's an example application. We don't want it to be too complex, because as soon as it starts to get too complex and too real world or too minutia details, then other people might start to think, yeah, but my app doesn't have to do that, so I don't care, or I'm not sure how that works. However, there are definitely real world things that everybody has to deal with. What happens if your fetches from the server don't work? Are you going to do weight spinners? Things like that. And okay, so that's my last slide. We're going to invite all the speakers up here one by one. Speakers, please remember to put this thing on while you're talking. And again, it's up to you if you use the microphone or not. Just project loudly, okay? So our first speaker, are you ready to go? All right, is Garrett Takarani. Let's give him a hand.
I'm going to set a timer here, just let them go over. All right. Just a little bit bigger here. Awesome. So my name is Garrett, and this was my attempt at trying to get this dev dictionary working. So thanks, Tyler, so much for setting all this up. I know it took him a really long time, and so just give him another hand.
One thing I forgot to show, that now you are in charge of doing this. I
all
hope
right.
you're prepared for this. I wanted to give briefly just an overview of the code. So I don't know how much you've changed.
Not much.
Okay. Can you just show them real quickly, like, this app